breaking news. Russia has threatened to deploy nuclear weapons in the Baltic if Sweden and Finland join NATO. In fact, Dmitry Medvedev, the deputy head of Russia's Security Council, has said that Moscow would have to strengthen its defenses in the region and there can be no more talk of nuclear-free Baltics. Now, remember, if we talk about the Baltic states or the Baltic countries, it is an unofficial geopolitical term typically used to group three countries, that is Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania. And if Russia goes ahead with this kind of a threat, this could turn out to be big. Russia's threatened to use nukes if Sweden and Finland join NATO. Remember, Sweden yesterday has already communicated its want to press for a NATO membership by the month of June. Finland is also now holding intense debates across the country on when they can go ahead with this decision. But given the developments from the two nations, now Russia coming out with a big threat to deploy nuclear weapons in the Baltic if Sweden and Finland join NATO. This is Dmitry Medvedev, who's the deputy head of Russia's Security Council, who said that Moscow would have to strengthen its defenses in the region and there can be no more talk. He says there can be no more talk of nuclear-free Baltic. So a big warning being sent out given the discussions that are currently underway in both Sweden and Finland. Already Finland's Prime Minister and Swedish Prime Minister they met in Stockholm and they have been discussing regional security matters in the aftermath of Russia's invasion. Both the nations deliberating on the need to join NATO. Let me go across to Shivani joining us live from the newsroom. Shivani, this could turn out to be bigger. We are already looking at Ukraine and Russia engaged in a full-fledged war. We're looking at the kind of military build-up on the eastern side of Ukraine in the European nations, and more countries are now getting dragged into this war. This is a big warning being sent out by Russia to both Sweden and Finland.
Katrine, this is a new pressure politics that's being played by Russia, and this is not the first time for when Russia has warned Finland and Sweden. Just after the aggression had started in Ukraine and when there were statements coming in of solidarity from Finland and Sweden, and also the statements regarding their intentions to join NATO, Russia had very well warned both of these nations and said that if Finland and Sweden will join NATO, they will have to face the same wrath what Ukraine has faced now. So now this is another time when Russia has given a threat and said that the Baltics will not be nuke-free if Finland and Sweden continued with their intentions to join NATO and if they are moving ahead with this plan. So Baltics that comprise of Estonia, Latvia, and these nations are the basis of NATO. There have been exercises that are being conducted here regularly by NATO forces, and NATO forces have been giving a lot of statements, and NATO has in fact been the bone of contention of Russian-Ukrainian war. So now when Russia has come out with this threat saying that Baltics will not be nuclear free, Russia will have to strengthen its defenses in those regions. So it definitely means something big. And Finland and Sweden, as we know, they have been meeting these nations and saying that they want to be a part of NATO. So now, once again, Russia is giving a stern warning to these countries, saying that it can use nuclear weapons if NATO and Finland and Sweden are going to be a part of NATO. So it definitely means a big warning from Russia.
Absolutely. And we do see how Russia's war in Ukraine has already provoked anxiety in several nations, including both Finland and Sweden. But if we talk about NATO, Shivani, have you been able to track what NATO's response has been all this while when these discussions have been underway? Are they saying that NATO's doors to more nation members remains open?
See, we've seen how since the inception of this aggression in the month of February, 24th of February, quite long before that, there were a number of statements that came in from NATO. Jens Stoltenberg, who has been talking about the solidarity that it tried to show with Ukraine, gives a very strong signal that NATO has been instigating not only Ukraine, but it is inviting other countries of the European Union to be a part of their alliance, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. And Russia has always been criticizing and raising concerns, especially because those countries that are close to its borders might pose a threat to its national security, because, you know, the collaboration of NATO nations and American forces that has been seen in a number of these Baltic nations has been a concern point for Russia. So now, once again, Russia is making it very clear that if Sweden and Finland are going ahead to be a part of NATO, then it will have to use the nuclear weapons, and that's the way of a pressure tact that Russia is now coming up with.
That Russia is going ahead with new threats. Now going ahead with this kind of a threat in the Baltic, given the kind of responses and the verbal confirmations that have been coming in by from the two nations. Thank you, Shivani, for that. We'll keep coming back to you as we track this very, very closely.